What's good, everybody? Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish. I don't know what the weather is where you are, but today we're going to make it sunny. Alright, in the vise today we are looking at the Ahrex SA254 size 2 for our bead. Of course, the ever popular, ever successful football bead from Spawn Fly Fish in gold 7.5 millimeters. But we don't want that thing moving around, so let's put some weighted wire wraps on there, about 6, and this is the size 0.025. There we go. Just going to cut that back, roll it over for a smoother edge. Same on the back side, and roll it over like so. And at this point, I just want to make sure that the beefy portion of that weight or the bead is on the outer side of our hook, so that when this is in the water, it will keel properly, hook point up. Let's get some thread started. Today we've got some Uni 6/0 thread, and this is color Camel, like so, and just trig out that tag in like that. Alright, so now real quick, just make sure my bead is lined up where I want. I'm going to push a little bit on the weighted wire wraps into the back side. Since the wraps themselves don't go into the cavity of this bead, we just want it butted up against. And if you secure those wraps down, they will hold that bead in place. And at the end of all this, of course, we're going to have some other elements that'll make sure everything is solidified. So at this point, I just want to work my thread to the back, and yes, it's to get a little coverage, but it's also to give myself a little marker spot of where I want to add my next element, which will be the tail. So what we're tying today is a small sunfish for bass. So if you look where my thread is, it's directly between the barb and the hook point, and that's exactly the spot I'm looking for. And so I'll give myself the end of that thread, and I know where to stop when I add this tail. I'm going to tie in a two-tone bucktail tail. And first color I've got here is a little bit of Sunburst orange bucktail from Hareline. And what I'm going to do is add this one first and then a lighter color underneath, and it'll look very natural as far as like other sunfish and even bluegills that we're trying to emulate here. What I'm looking for is a total length of roughly 2.5 inches. It's pretty small as far as a bait fish goes, but it's the exact size that I'm trying to replicate for this time of year to catch these early bass. So what it's going to be is roughly about right there, and so I'll go ahead and hold my bucktail on top and just get some loose wraps here to kind of position, and then I will check, make sure I'm only on the top, I'm not creeping onto the sides, and then I'll finish wrapping this down. And I'm going to go and use that little mark I gave myself earlier and go ahead and wrap all the way up. Now right here, this is, if you notice where these wire wraps end, that's where I'm going to make that cut. Why? I want an even underbody, and if I do that, you see there, I'm going to make that transition very smooth at the end of all of this. So there's our first color. Now let's get right into our second color, and this is another Hareline bucktail in pastel yellow, and all I'm going to do is stack that up like so. So you see there's not a huge tail here, but it's definitely going to give the impression of a tail, and fish that eat these little bait fish, prey, whatever you want to call them, they'll appreciate it. The little nuances, that's what we're looking for. And just check, make sure this is riding right on top of our first color of hair. Wrap that in. Same deal in the front where those weighted wire wraps start is where I want this hair to end. But this time, instead of a straight cut, I'm going to come in with a little bit of an angle. And so it'll kind of feather or fade those hairs out for me instead of having one abrupt stopping spot. And that will allow me to kind of jump onto those weighted wire wraps and still make a smooth transition. There we go. And if you wanted to, you could go another pass, really get all that stuff flattened down, but I'm pretty happy with where we're at. So right now I'm just going to make a loop, thread loop. We're going to get this filled with some spawn Simi seal goodness here for the body of this fly. Alright, so we're going to do 3 wraps around, and then that creates our little knot to prevent this from going forward and or backward. Get it solidified, done. Get that thread all the way up behind the bead. Open up our loop with 3 twists to undo the 3 twists of thread that we put on, and this is what I'm putting in there, and I will explain that here in a second. So we've got 3 colors of Simi seal that are going to make up the body coloration for this sunfish. And if you want to know exactly, it is 2 parts white silver spawn Simi seal, 1 part yellow spawn Simi seal, and 1 part steelhead torch, UV steelhead torch. And so what I'm looking at is roughly 1 scissor length or 4 inches. I'm going to get this all spun up. And I know it seems like a long loop, but what's going to happen is we want a rather stout body that doesn't collapse completely. And if you look at a baby sunfish, they're quite tall for their length. So this is a little bit different than the normal minnow or baitfish pattern that we usually tie in fish. But we're going to show you how to accomplish that exaggerated vertical height, if you will, as compared to the typical long and narrow minnow. Alright, so these are not quite touching wraps, almost a palmering of this as we go forward to behind the bead. And we're just kind of coaxing those fibers back with our offhand on each turn of the thread, or each wrap. And so you can see what looked like a lot of dubbing noodle there at the beginning is going to end up being just right. And one more and we'll finish this off. Like so, right behind that bead. Couple wraps to grab the thread, get that tool out of there, and really solidify that down. Trim out our tag. And at this point, going to come in with our stomful brush once again. So we use it after we load our material and spin our noodle. We go ahead and get rid of all those trapped fibers, any loose fibers, and then we do it again once we've wrapped all that noodle. I don't like that hair, so we just get rid of it, like so. So you can already see it's going to have some of that recognizable, I should say, coloration of a sunfish. So you can see that it's kind of coming together already. So now I want a little flash in here, and by a little I mean a lot. And so I have some Flashabou accent, 2 colors, one being Seafoam, excuse me, and the other is peach. All I'm going to do is come around my thread, veil it here versus on the fly, and now I'm in control of that flash. And so let's take it right to the hook here, get it a couple wraps, and then I'm going to just kind of lay it over and reposition my fingers so that when I do this, you can see there I'm square on that top portion. I'm not leaking off to the sides. It's just going to stay exactly where I want it to. And typically we tie all this stuff in and trim later, not today. So if you're scissor happy, this is the fly for you. What I want to do is cut this flash at an angle, and I want it to end roughly 1/2 to 3/4 the length of the tail. So it puts me in this area, but what I'm going to do is a stagger cut. So I'm going to keep that angle, make a couple cuts, and then just kind of stagger my scissor back as I go. And you'll see that's not an even cut. And that is exactly 100% what I'm going for. And so we'll swoop all those flash fibers down and on top. And so there's our coloration, a little bling, get their attention, all that good stuff. Now it is all incorporated. Just a few more elements here. So now let's get back into the bucktail. And once again, this is that Sunburst orange, or just, Sunburst yellow. And we're going to go on top. Now if you look at these little sunfish, they're not going to stay all the way, so that we don't want these fibers reaching the back of the tail is what I'm getting at. So where that flash ends, I'm just going to get these fibers to the end of that flash and keeping them right on top here. A couple loose wraps, and I'm going to check, make sure my positioning is correct. And it gets a little bit tricky here because these fibers are going to want to hold on to that flash. And there, that's all we need. Get it solidified. And by all means, you could reverse tie this in, but today we really don't need to because we are going to be adding resin and eyeballs and all that good stuff. So trim as neat as you please. That's as neat as we need. And then one more color to go on top, and this is Hareline's Yellow Olive Bucktail. And so in the same idea that we went with last time, we're going to come in just shy of the end of the Sunburst color this time. So this is really going to shorten the overall dorsal side of that fly. And again, not normal, but it's what we're going for on this little sunfish. So just going to press that down, flatten, check both sides, make sure that hair is exactly where I want it, and come in and solidify. Trim out. And you know, a lot of times with bucktail, especially young, new tires, whatever it might be, that bucktail's not tied in real strong. It's a slippery substance, wants to pull out. There might be the advantage to a reverse and then pull over after it's tied in. But again, at the end of this, we're going to add a bunch of resin. It's going to trap that. You're going to cure it and seal it. You should not have any issues. But something to be aware of. Practice on your bucktail so that it's not moving around and slipping on you. All right, one final material as far as these goodies go. And we've got a little bit of just yellow spawn Simi seal. I'm going to turn this bad boy over. And I want the front of this fly, again, to emulate the prey species that we're trying to copy. And so I'm going to give him just that little yellow belly right in the front, like so. Check for square, and it is, and so we'll just tie it down. Nothing to it. Alright. At this point, really going to make sure I've got that thread neck as solidified as possible. Any loose fibers, now's the time. Go ahead and get rid of that and spread all that around and under, and there's our little sunfish so far. Let's go ahead and whip finish this a couple times. There's our first one. This thing is going to be thrown into some water that holds big bass. Very aggressive, smash kind of a take, and so we want that to be strong. Alright, looking pretty good so far. Our next element will be some eyes. Now, I'm not going to get real descriptive on which eyes you use. These are 6mm eyes, so let's base it off of that for now and just go with 6mm 3D eye of your choice. A little Superglue Gel coming in hot, and what I want, of course, is to just kind of meet where the thread wraps and the materials begin on the body, and then I can, of course, fill in from there with my resin. So I'm just going to put the first one on my side, and I'm going with that lighter color on the bottom, and then I will do the same on your side very quickly here, and like so. And then I can move them still, make sure they're lined up side to side, and height-wise the same. And then just mash them together a little bit, hold for 10 seconds, right? And there's your fly. But now what I have to do is come in with a bunch of resin, and I'm going to do top, bottom, cure it separately. And then I'm going to start on the sides. So I'll do one side and the other, cure them both, and then I'll do a pass all around the entire thing twice. So when you're using resin, it's not cover it in resin and hit it. No, thin layer, over and over, and that's how you really cure all of that goodness, that resin, make it nice and firm and hard. So let's get this guy out of the vise, and I will show you one that we've already gotten ready like that. And I don't know how wet this guy is still, but there we are. That's our finished fly. So you can see here that resin, once you get it on top and bottom, if you don't get this fly wet before the resin, it will achieve this more vertical move and give you more height in your fly. So like when this is in the water now and collapses, this is it. That's the fly. It's going to hold that body shape, and that is exactly what we're looking for to catch all these bass. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, smash that like, smash that subscribe button, and we will see you guys on the water.